So I wanted to talk about what I read in July. Now, I thought coming into July that it may not be quite as productive of a reading month for me because, well, it's summertime and you know how that goes, especially with kids around the house, and had vacation there at the end of the month. So I thought that it may not be quite as productive as it normally is, but it ended up being very productive, and I was glad of that. So I just want to talk a little bit about what I read in that month, the month of July. First of all, I read The Old Man and the Sea. Now, I had said on Twitter that I want to read a little more classic literature, something I haven't read a whole lot of. And of course, you know, I'm sure I read some back in high school, but I have racked my brain and I cannot remember most of what I would have read in high school. So I'm going to try to add some classic literature here and there as I move forward. And so I read The Old Man and the Sea, and it was not, it was sort of what I expected, and it also is not what I expected. What I mean by that is, I can remember watching the movie The Old Man and the Sea, and I had a different, when I was a lot younger, I had a different memory of how it ended, and it ended nothing like I thought it did, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with the actual ending of the book compared to what I thought, the way I thought it ended. And of course, The Old Man and the Sea, Hemingway, just beautiful prose. In fact, I don't know if anybody would agree with me on this, but as I was reading The Old Man and the Sea, I really felt sort of like Cormac McCarthy, so like The Road, not the depressing nature of The Road, but just the way he said it, the atmosphere. It reminded me a lot of Cormac McCarthy, so I'm sure that he may have been an influence for Cormac McCarthy. So that's what I read first. And then I also read another classic literature book, which was Frankenstein. I don't know if it's ever going to show up, but Frankenstein. I ordered this off Pango Books. Ended up being a lot smaller book than what I thought it would be. Really beautiful gold edges, but pretty small. Anyway, but I read Frankenstein, and this is another book, was nothing, and I've heard other people say this, and so I was prepared for it. It was nothing what I thought it was going to be. I was expecting a monster. I was expecting gore. I was expecting some elements of horror, and there were some limited elements of horror, but really it's more just a story about the monster trying to find itself, how it fits in the world, will anybody love it, and also there's contention there with its creator, Dr. Frankenstein. Very good book. I enjoyed it so much. Just the story really moved me, especially there towards the end. Then the next book I read in July, I started off July with Lonesome Dove. I got about 60% through Lonesome Dove, and I enjoyed it. I already mentioned on another video of my TBR for August that I'm finishing the last 300 pages. I'm down to just over 100 pages now for Lonesome Dove, but I read the first 60%, and then it came time to do a buddy read, so I stopped until now. And this is the book I did a buddy read. It's Sinless of Sins by Josiah Bancroft. I did that with Black and Blue Reader, and just mixed to positive. Now I'm just gonna be honest with you. The way this fell out for me, it was a page turner for me. I couldn't put it down. I was done with it, and of course, the speed of how fast you read a book is going to differ from person to person. To me, it took me a little less than a week to read this, but I couldn't stop reading it. I turned the page, just enjoying what I was reading. And as soon as I got through, I thought this is a solid 4.5 stars for me, if not 5. But then I sat with the book a little bit. I sat with the book and I thought about what I had read, and I'm going to give you the positives and the negatives for me. So, because I changed a little bit the more I sat with the book. The prose, the writing. Josiah Bancroft is a beautiful writer. In fact, there's another book that's coming out soon, The Hexologist. I actually got approved for it to read as an ARC, and I'm going to be reading that. I'm excited about it because he's a beautiful writer. So that's a positive. If you're looking for beautiful prose, you'll find it here. If you're looking for, and this wouldn't normally work for me, it did this time, however, if you're looking for quirky, strange things to happen, that's not usually my bag. But some of the strangest and most quirky events took place in this book, and I enjoyed it. It pulled me in. But as I said, the longer I sat with it after I finished reading it and thinking about the story, I really didn't connect with the characters like I feel like I should have. Maybe I read it at the wrong time, because I was in the middle of a few dense books, epic books, Lonesome Dove, Until the Last by Mike Shackle, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I'm in the middle of these books, and maybe I just read it at the wrong time, but I really didn't connect with it like I would like to have. So I'm going to hold off on moving on to that series. I'm not DNFing the series. I'm just going to hold off, maybe wait a little while before I start the next. All right, what's next is Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell. This is the third book of his Warlord Chronicles. The first book I really enjoyed, especially the last 100 pages of it, which is The Winter King. Book 2, Enemy of God, may be one of my favorite books of the year. We'll have to see. There's other books that's also in the running for that, as well as I still have some more great books I'm going to be reading, but it's in the running. Excalibur, I was thinking that it might go down a little bit. The story may, just a little bit. You know, sometimes a series has a middle book syndrome. I expected not to enjoy, I enjoyed the middle book so much that I expected that this may not be quite as much, but I did. I even think it surpassed Enemy of God. The conclusion. Now, when I say satisfying, I'm not telling you positive or negative ending for the characters, but it was still a satisfying ending. It was a very satisfying ending. I could not have hoped for a better ending to the series. This is going to go down as probably one of my favorite trilogies of all time, no doubt. So if you haven't picked up the Warlord Chronicles, please, you need to do that. Next is also a series that I was able to complete with the last book. I've already mentioned it. It is Until the Last by Mike Shackle. Book 1, We Are the Dead. Gritty, grimdark, fierce, bloody, all of those things, but still a unique story that takes place in the middle of a land that has been occupied and beaten by the enemy. So already a different type of situation than what we're used to reading normally. And then the second book, just really, again, no second book syndrome. After We Are the Dead, it just took the story in unique places, a thrill ride. And then there's this one. Now, Until the Last. If I were ranking how much I enjoyed the three books, the second book would be my first. It would be the one I enjoyed the most. Fool's Hope is the name of that book. And then We Are the Dead, and then Until the Last. But don't be too concerned about that, because I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. There were, out of all of the POVs, out of all the characters, I think I appreciated how all of them ended except one. There was one that was a big surprise, and I'm not going to give anything about it because I don't want to spoil it for you. There was one that was a huge surprise, didn't see it coming, and I appreciated that. There was one character in here I did not appreciate their ending. I felt like they got the short end of the stick. I felt like they deserved a better ending than they got. And it kind of brought it down for me a little bit. Some have said, well, I've heard some say maybe this was too long. I don't think it's too long. I think the length is just fine. I enjoyed everything about this except for the ending for one character. And I hope you will pick this up. Again, I always say this, language, graphic violence, but an amazing story. And then how did I end this month? Well, I ended this month, and actually I finished this book before lunchtime on August 1st, but I read the vast majority of it in July, so I'm counting it for my July reads. I don't know how you do that, but that's how I'm going to do that, and that is Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. The sixth installment of the Red Rising books. And I'm not yet ready to rate. I just finished this 2 days ago. I'm not ready yet to rank what I have, the books as they are so far. I don't know where the rest of them fall, but this one is number one. I know that. I don't know where to put the rest of the books. I wish I didn't have to put any of them last, but this is definitely number one. There was not one book I didn't enjoy. I'll say this, when I first read the first book, Red Rising, I wasn't as impressed with it as I would like to have been. And then I read the second book, but that helped me to understand what he was doing in the first book. So I still, at this point, in hindsight, I ranked the first book, Red Rising, higher than I did after I first read it, because I feel like he was doing something that was important, and he was setting up a foundation, and I greatly appreciate it. But this is my favorite Red Rising book so far. If you stopped at the original trilogy, I get it. A very satisfying end for the original trilogy, but don't skip the sequel books if you can help it. I mean, they get better and better and better. So, Pierce Brown, Red Rising. Can't wait for Red God to come out. I think I had a great reading month in July. I hope you also had a good month. Tell me what you read. Tell me how you think your lineup went. And until next time, go read books.